The spotlight burned against my skin as I tried to steady my breathing. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the microphone stand, the cool metal grounding me in reality while the rest of the club dissolved into a sea of shadows beyond the stage. I closed my eyes briefly, inhaling the familiar scent of spilled drinks, cigarette smoke, and cheap perfume that permeated the Blue Note. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to our stage Eliza James. That was my cue, my stage name, not my real one. Elena Jimenez was an exhausted single mother. She rushed home from her insurance office day job. Her main task was to relieve the teenage babysitter, who charged extra after 6 p.m. She then sang lullabies to 5-year-old Maya. Afterwards, she quickly changed into a dress, hiding the morning's spilled apple juice stains. Eliza was the woman who stood before the crowd now, someone braver than I ever felt. I opened my mouth and let the first notes flow, soft and tentative at first, then building. My voice was the only thing I had left that was truly mine. The one gift I had not surrendered when Carlos left us for his 22-year-old dental hygienist and a new life in Arizona. The one treasure that might, if I was lucky, provide enough extra income to move Maya from our one-bedroom apartment to something with actual heating that worked in winter. The usual Thursday crowd was sparse. A couple celebrating an anniversary, a few regulars at the bar nursing their whiskeys, and some tourists who had wandered in from their downtown hotels. But tonight, something felt different. Through the haze of blue light and cigarette smoke, I noticed it immediately. The front row table, usually empty on weeknights, was occupied. 3 men in dark suits sat with rigid posture, their faces half hidden in shadow. They did not speak to each other, did not sway to the music like the other patrons. They watched. The one in the center caught my attention, broad-shouldered and utterly still, like a statue carved from marble and shadow. Even from the stage, I could sense something dangerous in his stillness, a coiled energy that made my voice falter for just a moment between verses. I forced my gaze away, focusing instead on the familiar faces at the bar, on the couple who smiled and swayed. But my eyes kept being drawn back to him, to the way his fingers lightly drummed the table in time with the rhythm. He wore no wedding ring, I noticed, just an expensive watch that caught the light when he moved, and a signet ring that looked heavy and old. When I finished my first set, the applause was polite but sparse. I thanked the audience with a practiced smile and stepped off the stage, my legs shaky beneath me. Marco, the club manager, intercepted me before I could reach the small dressing room in the back. "Good set, Elena," he said, his voice unusually tense. He kept glancing over my shoulder toward the front row table. "Thanks. Who are they?" I whispered, trying to look casual as I accepted the glass of water he offered. Marco's eyes darted nervously. "The one in the middle is Dante Russo." The name meant nothing to me. I raised an eyebrow. Marco leaned closer, his voice barely audible. "He owns half the waterfront. More than that. He is connected, dangerous, and he specifically asked about you when he reserved the table." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Asked about me? Why would he?" "I do not know, and I do not want to know." Marco cut me off. "Just be professional." His people tipped the bartender $200 just for bringing drinks. I nodded, swallowing hard. "I need to call home, check on Maya. 5 minutes, then you are back on." The tiny dressing room was little more than a closet, with a mirror and a folding chair, but it was private. I called Mrs. Patel, our elderly neighbor, who watched Maya when my evening shifts ran late. "She is sleeping like an angel," Mrs. Patel assured me in her soothing voice. "Do not worry, Mija. Take your time." I thanked her and hung up, staring at my reflection. My dark hair was coming loose from its elegant updo, and the makeup I had hastily applied was already showing the strain of the hot stage lights. I looked tired. I was tired, bone deep, exhausted from working 2 jobs, from being both mother and father, from pretending I was not terrified of the mounting bills. When I returned to the stage, I could not help but notice that the mysterious man, Dante, was watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His eyes, dark and unreadable, followed my every movement. The 2 men flanking him remained expressionless, but he leaned forward slightly when I began to sing again, his interest unmistakable. I chose a slower, more intimate song for my second set, something about heartbreak and resilience. As I sang, I felt a strange connection forming between us, this dangerous stranger and me, as though the lyrics were a conversation only we could hear. It was unsettling and exhilarating all at once. After the show, I changed quickly, eager to get home to Maya. I slipped out the back door as I always did, pulling my coat tight against the October chill. The alley behind the Blue Note was poorly lit, a fact I usually tried not to dwell on during my walks to the bus stop. I was fishing my bus pass from my purse when the sleek black car pulled up beside me, its engine a soft purr in the night. The window rolled down silently, revealing the driver, one of the men who had been sitting at the front table. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Miss James, His voice was flat, professional. "Mr. Russo would like to speak with you." It was not a request. The back door opened, revealing the shadowy interior. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I remembered Marco's words. Dangerous, connected. I thought of Maya, of our precarious finances, of how easily my meager stability could be shattered. "I need to get home," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "My daughter." "It will not take long," came a new voice, deep and smooth like aged whiskey. From the darkness of the car emerged the man himself, Dante Russo, now standing on the sidewalk a few feet from me. Up close, he was taller than I had realized, his features sharp and aristocratic. His suit probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. "I enjoyed your performance tonight," he said, studying me with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through me. "You have a rare talent." "Thank you," I replied cautiously, "but I really need to. I have a proposition for you, Miss James. Or do you prefer Elena Jimenez?" The sound of my real name on his lips sent ice through my veins. How did he know? What else did he know about me? About Maya? A private performance? He continued. "At an event I am hosting this weekend. The compensation would be substantial." The way he said substantial made it clear he knew exactly how desperately I needed money. Part of me was offended at the assumption, but another part, the part that had been staring at past due notices, was already calculating what substantial might mean. A new winter coat for Maya, maybe even first month's rent on a better apartment. "I do not do private performances," I lied, clutching my purse tighter. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not quite. $10,000 for one evening. I nearly choked. $10,000 was more than I made in 3 months combined. "Why me?" I managed to ask, suspicion warring with desperate hope. "As I said, you have a rare talent." His eyes never left mine. "My driver will pick you up Saturday at 7. The address is here." He extended a heavy cream-colored envelope. Against my better judgment, I reached for it. Our fingers brushed, and I could not help but notice how warm his hand was in contrast to the cold night air. As I took the envelope, my foot caught on a crack in the sidewalk, sending me stumbling forward. His reaction was instant, strong hands catching me before I could fall, steadying me with surprising gentleness. For a brief moment, we were too close, his expensive cologne enveloping me, notes of sandalwood and something darker underneath. His hands lingered on my arms a moment longer than necessary. "Careful," he murmured, his voice lower now. Something shifted in his expression, a flicker of something possessive, almost hungry, before his features settled back into their impassive mask. I stepped back hastily, the envelope clutched in my trembling fingers. "I have not said yes, but you will." It was not a question. He opened the car door again. "Saturday at 7, Elena," where something read. He slid into the darkness of the car, the door closing with a soft, expensive thud. As the car pulled away, I stood frozen on the sidewalk. The envelope felt heavy in my hand. I wondered what kind of devil's bargain I was considering. Why did the thought of seeing him again send such a confusing thrill through my veins? The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days, untouched, but impossible to ignore. Its presence filled our small apartment like another occupant, demanding attention every time I walked past. By Friday evening, as I tucked Maya into bed, I still had not decided what to do. "Mommy, why do you look so worried?" Maya asked, her small hand reaching up to touch my cheek. Her eyes, so much like her father's, watched me with a wisdom beyond her years. "Just grown-up stuff, mija," I said, smoothing her dark curls away from her forehead. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it about money again?" She frowned, those tiny eyebrows pulling together. "I heard Mrs. Patel tell you we could stay with her if we needed to." My heart clenched. No child should have to worry about such things. "We are not going anywhere," I promised, kissing her forehead. "Now, which story tonight? Princess or dragons?" "Dragons," she declared, as she always did. "The one where the dragon is really a friend." After she fell asleep, I sat at our tiny kitchen table and finally opened the envelope. Inside was an address, a mansion in the wealthiest part of the city, perched on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, along with a check for $5,000 marked deposit. A handwritten note accompanied it in elegant angular script. The remainder upon completion. Car will arrive at 7 o'clock. $5,000 just for showing up. I ran my fingers over the check, feeling the raised ink, the watermark. It was real. With this, I could catch up on rent, pay off the medical bills from Maya's asthma attack last winter, maybe even start a small savings account for her future. The next day passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. I called in a favor with Mrs. Patel, who agreed to stay overnight with Maya. I told her I had a special performance, a chance for extra money. Not a complete lie, but not the whole truth either. At 6:30, I stood before the mirror in my bedroom, hardly recognizing myself. I had used some of the deposit money to buy a dress. Deep crimson, as he had instructed, with a modest neckline, but a back that dipped dangerously low. It hugged my figure in ways my usual clothes never did, reminding me that beneath the harried single mother was still a woman of 32, still someone who could turn heads. My hair fell in loose waves down my back, and my makeup was more dramatic than anything I would wear to the Blue Note. "You look like a princess, Mommy." Maya gasped when I emerged. Mrs. Patel gave me a knowing look over her reading glasses, but said nothing, just shooed me toward the door with assurances that everything would be fine. At precisely 7 o'clock, a black car identical to the one from the alley pulled up in front of our apartment building. The driver, a different man this time, younger but with the same watchful eyes, opened the door without a word. The drive took us away from the familiar grid of downtown through neighborhoods that grew progressively more exclusive, until we were winding up a private road lined with cypress trees. The mansion, when it finally came into view, was breathtaking. Modern and angular, walls of glass overlooking the Pacific, illuminated gardens cascading down the cliffside. 2 men in dark suits stood at the entrance. They nodded to the driver as we pulled up, then opened my door. Neither spoke to me directly, but I felt their eyes cataloging everything. My dress, my nervous hands, the worn clasp on my evening bag. Inside the house was a cathedral of glass and stone. A staff member appeared, a woman with a sleek bob and an expressionless face, who led me through the minimalist grandeur of the main hall. "Mr. Russo will see you momentarily," she said, gesturing to a sitting area. "Would you care for a drink?" "Just water." "Thank you," I replied, perching on the edge of a white leather sofa that probably cost more than my car. From somewhere deeper in the house, I could hear the low murmur of voices, the occasional clink of glasses. I had expected a party, a gathering of some kind where I would perform. Instead, the house seemed eerily quiet for an event. Minutes passed, and with each one my unease grew. What exactly had I agreed to? The money suddenly seemed less like an opportunity and more like a trap. Just as I was contemplating leaving, footsteps approached. Measured, unhurried, Dante Russo appeared in the doorway, and my breath caught despite myself. He wore a black suit, even more exquisite than the one from the club, tailored to his broad shoulders and lean waist with precision that spoke of old money and older power. His dark hair was swept back from his forehead, emphasizing the sharp angles of his face. But it was his eyes that held me. Dark, intense, focused entirely on me as though nothing else existed in his world at that moment. "Elena," he said, my name like silk in his mouth. "You came. You did not give me much choice," I replied, standing to face him. "Your deposit was very persuasive." A smile ghosted across his lips. "And you wore red." His eyes traveled over me, not leering, but appreciative as one might admire a painting. "It suits you. Where are the other guests?" I asked, glancing around the empty room. "You mentioned an event." "A slight exaggeration," he admitted, moving closer. "The event is dinner. Just the two of us." Alarm bells rang in my head. "That is not what I agreed to. I am a singer, Mr. Russo." "Not. Please," he interrupted, his expression hardening for just a moment before smoothing back to polite interest. "I am aware of what you are, Elena. Dinner is just dinner. The performance comes after if you are still willing." I hesitated, calculating risks against rewards. His body language betrayed no threat, but power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. He was used to getting his way. That much was obvious, but he was also maintaining a careful distance, hands visible, posture non-threatening. "Where would I be singing?" I asked finally. He gestured toward what I assumed was a dining room. "We can discuss the details over dinner. You must be hungry." As if on cue, my stomach growled traitorously. I had not eaten since morning, too nervous to manage more than coffee. Dante's expression softened into something almost genuine. "Come," he said. "Not quite a command, but not quite a request either. The chef has prepared something special." The dining room was dominated by a table that could have seated 20, yet only 2 places were set at one end. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the ocean below, moonlight glinting off the dark water. A man in chef's whites appeared silently with the first course, something delicate involving scallops that I could not pronounce, but that melted in my mouth. "Tell me about yourself, Elena," Dante said as we ate, his attention unwaveringly fixed on me. "I am sure you already know everything worth knowing," I countered. "You knew my real name after all." "I make it my business to know things," he acknowledged, swirling red wine in a crystal glass. "But facts are not the same as truth. I know you are 32, born in East Heights, parents both gone, single mother to Maya, age 5. You work at Meridian Insurance by day, sing at the Blue Note 3 nights a week. Your ex-husband left 18 months ago and has not sent a child support check in 6. The recitation of my life laid bare in his rich voice made me feel exposed, vulnerable. Is that supposed to impress me or frighten me? Neither. He set down his glass. It is meant to save time. I know the outline of your story. Now I want to hear how it feels to live it. The question was so unexpected, so oddly intimate that I found myself answering honestly. It feels like drowning in slow motion, like being stretched so thin I might tear apart. It feels like love and fear and exhaustion, all mixed together until I cannot separate them anymore. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. For a moment, neither of us spoke. You did not ask how I know these things about you, he observed, breaking the silence. Would you tell me if I did? Perhaps. He leaned forward slightly. I have been watching you for longer than you realize, Elena. The admission should have terrified me. Instead, it provoked a strange flutter in my chest, a mixture of fear, and something else I did not dare name. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Your voice drew me in first, he said. I heard you sing 6 months ago when I was at the Blue Note on business. You performed My Funny Valentine that night. Do you remember? I shook my head. 6 months ago was a lifetime in my world of day-to-day survival. You sang as if your heart was breaking, he continued. And I wanted to know who had broken it. The intensity of his gaze made me look away. That is a strange reason to investigate someone. I have been told my interests are unusual. There was a hint of dry humor in his voice. But once I started watching, I could not stop. You fascinate me, Elena. Your resilience, your fire, the way you have carved out a life for yourself and your daughter against impossible odds. My cheeks burned at his words. You make it sound noble. It is just survival. Survival is noble, he said with surprising conviction. More noble than most of what passes for success in my world. The dinner continued, course after exquisite course, and with each one I felt my guard lowering despite myself. Dante was surprisingly easy to talk to. Intelligent, attentive, with flashes of unexpected warmth beneath his controlled exterior. He spoke of music with genuine passion, of books and art with thoughtful insight. Not once did he mention whatever business had made him wealthy enough to own this house on the cliff, though the shadow of it hung over our conversation like a storm cloud on the horizon. After dessert, a delicate confection of dark chocolate that made me close my eyes in pleasure, he led me through the house to another room. My breath caught as we entered. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, but what drew my eye was the grand piano in the center, black and gleaming in the soft light. This is where you will perform, he said, watching my reaction closely. If you are still willing. I approached the piano, running my fingers lightly over the polished surface. It is beautiful, but I do not play. I only sing. I play, he said simply. I turned to him in surprise. You? Something like amusement crossed his features. Does that shock you? That someone like me might have cultivated skills beyond intimidation? Yes, I admitted honestly. His laugh was unexpected, deep, and genuine, transforming his severe features into something almost boyish for a fleeting moment. Honesty. Refreshing. He moved to the piano bench and sat, his large hands hovering over the keys. What shall we play, Elena? For the next hour. We made music together. His skill at the piano was undeniable. Not just technically proficient, but emotionally nuanced in a way I had not expected from someone so controlled. We moved from jazz standards to torch songs, his fingers finding the perfect accompaniment to my voice, as if we had been performing together for years. I lost myself in the music, in the pure joy of singing with a truly gifted accompanist, in the rare pleasure of being heard, really heard, by someone who understood. When we finally paused, I realized I had tears in my eyes. Dante was watching me with an expression I could not read. Hunger, yes, but also something like wonder. You are even more extraordinary than I thought, he said quietly. Before I could respond, the moment was shattered by the sound of a phone. Dante's expression closed immediately as he pulled a sleek black device from his pocket. He glanced at the screen, then back at me. Excuse me, he said. I need to take this. He stepped away, speaking in rapid Italian too low for me to hear. Whatever the call was about, it transformed him before my eyes. The man who had played piano with such sensitivity hardened into someone else entirely, his posture rigid, his voice clipped and cold. When he ended the call, he turned back to me with eyes like obsidian. I apologize, but our evening must be cut short, he said, all trace of warmth gone. Something requires my immediate attention. Disappointment washed over me, surprisingly keen. Is everything all right? Nothing for you to concern yourself with. His tone was brusque, professional once more. He reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope similar to the first one. The remainder of your payment. As agreed. I took it reluctantly, our fingers brushing. The brief contact seemed to trigger something in him. His eyes softened momentarily before hardening again with resolve. My driver will take you home, he said, already turning away. Thank you for your time, Elena. Just like that, I was dismissed. A woman appeared. The same one who had greeted me and led me silently through the house. Within minutes, I was in the black car, speeding away from the cliffside mansion, clutching an envelope with $5,000 and a head swirling with confusion. What had just happened? For a brief magical hour, I had glimpsed something unexpected in Dante Russo. Vulnerability, passion, genuine connection. Then, with one phone call, the mask had slammed back into place. I tried to tell myself it was for the best. Whatever Dante was involved in, whatever had made him dangerous, as Marco had warned, was not something I needed in my life. I had Maya to think about, stability to maintain. Yet, as the city lights blurred outside the car window, I could not shake the feeling that something significant had shifted in my world. The driver remained silent during our journey, but I felt his eyes on me in the rearview mirror. When we reached my apartment building, he spoke for the first time. Mr. Russo would like to know if you arrived home safely, he said as he opened my door. May I inform him that you did? The formality of the question, the implication that Dante was waiting to hear about me, sent an unexpected thrill through my chest. Yes, I replied, trying to sound indifferent. Thank you for the ride. Mrs. Patel was dozing on my sofa when I entered. She startled awake, eyes widening at the sight of me in my red dress. So, the night was successful? She asked, a knowing smile crinkling the corners of her eyes. It was interesting, I hedged, not ready to explain what had happened when I barely understood it myself. How was Maya? An angel as always. She is sleeping soundly. Mrs. Patel gathered her things, then paused at the door. Elena, be careful. Fine dresses and fancy cars, they can make a woman forget herself. After she left, I checked on Maya, watching her small chest rise and fall in the dim light from her nightlamp. Her face was peaceful in sleep, innocent. I thought about the envelope in my purse, about what it would mean for us. No more choosing between heat and food in winter. Perhaps even a small start toward college savings, but at what cost? I slept fitfully that night, dreams filled with dark eyes and piano music. When morning came, I tucked the money away in the back of my closet, trying to tuck away the memories just as firmly. The next few days passed with deceptive normalcy. I worked at the insurance office, picked Maya up from kindergarten, cooked dinner, and sang at the Blue Note. However, everything felt slightly off-kilter, as if the world had shifted a few degrees and nothing quite fit anymore. On Wednesday night, I arrived at the club to find Marco pacing nervously near the stage. There you are, he exclaimed when he saw me. He has been asking when you would arrive. My heart stuttered. Who? Marco gave me a look that suggested I was being deliberately obtuse. Russo. He is in his private booth with some associates. Been here an hour already. Sure enough, when I peered around the curtain, I saw him seated in the corner booth, usually reserved for VIPs, surrounded by the same intimidating men in dark suits. He was immaculate as ever, but something about him looked different. Tense. His eyes scanned the club constantly, one hand resting on the table, the other hidden from view. Did he say anything? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just asked what time you would be performing. But Elena. Marco lowered his voice. There was some trouble here last night. 2 men asking questions about you. Russians, I think. Ice slid down my spine. What kind of questions? When you work? Where you live? Marco's expression was grave. I did not tell them anything, but they were not happy about it. Left their card. Said they would be back. I felt suddenly lightheaded. Why would anyone be asking about me? Marco glanced toward Dante's table. I do not know, but Russo's men were here 20 minutes after they left, asking the same questions, wanting to know who had been looking for you. He shook his head. I do not know what you have gotten involved in, Elena, but I would get uninvolved fast. I nodded numbly and went to prepare for my set. As I sang that night, I could not help but notice the way Dante watched me, not with the appreciation of Saturday night, but with something more predatory, more possessive. His eyes never left me, even as he spoke to the men around him, even as he took calls on one of several phones arranged before him on the table. After my final set, I changed quickly, planning to slip out the back as usual. But when I opened the dressing room door, one of Dante's men was waiting. Mr. Russo would like a word, he said flatly. My heart pounded. I need to get home to my daughter. It is important, the man insisted. Security matter. The phrase sent chills through me. Reluctantly, I followed him to the VIP booth. The other men stood as we approached, creating a barrier between us and the rest of the club. Dante remained seated, his dark eyes unreadable. Elena, he greeted, gesturing to the seat opposite him. Please. I sat, hyper-aware of the men standing guard around us. Marco said there were people asking about me. Yes, His jaw tightened. Associates of someone who wishes to send me a message. They believe targeting you might accomplish that. Targeting me? I do not understand. I barely know you. Something flashed in his eyes. Irritation, perhaps, or frustration. They saw you leave my house. In certain circles, that is enough to establish a connection. A connection that puts me and my daughter in danger, I said, anger rising through my fear. Because of one dinner? Because of who I am, he corrected, his voice low and intense. This is my fault, and I will fix it. But until then, you need protection. I laughed incredulously. Protection? I need to be left alone. I cannot have this, whatever this is, in Maya's life. At the mention of my daughter, Dante's expression changed subtly. The threat is real, Elena. These are not men who make idle warnings. And what exactly do you propose? I demanded. You and your daughter will stay at my house. I have security systems, personnel. Absolutely not. I cut him off. We are not moving in with you. We are not part of your world. His hand tightened around his glass. You became part of my world the moment I noticed you. The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened me. Instead, it sent a traitorous heat through my veins. I stood abruptly. We will manage on our own. Thank you for the warning. As I turned to leave, his hand shot out, catching my wrist. His touch was gentle but unyielding. Elena, please. I do not want to see you hurt. Our eyes locked, and for a moment, I glimpsed something behind his controlled facade. Genuine concern. Perhaps even fear. It was enough to make me hesitate. Let me at least have someone watch your apartment, he said, his thumb brushing over my pulse point. You will not even know they are there, just until I resolve this situation. I should have said no. Should have pulled away, walked out, changed my phone number, moved apartments. But the memory of Maya sleeping peacefully, unaware of any danger, stopped me. Fine, I conceded. Someone can watch the building, but that is all. Relief flickered across his face. Thank you. I promise this will be over soon. I extracted my wrist from his grasp. It is already over, Mr. Russo. Whatever you thought might happen between us, it cannot. Pain flashed in his eyes, quickly masked. Of course. He reached into his jacket, withdrew a small card. If you need anything at all, call this number. Anytime, day or night. I took the card without looking at it, tucked it into my purse, and left without another word. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. I hurried to the bus stop, the feeling of being watched prickling between my shoulder blades. The next few days passed in intense vigilance. I checked locks twice, jumped at unfamiliar noises, scrutinized every stranger who glanced at Maya. I noticed the black sedan parked across from our apartment building, the same men rotating shifts, Dante's men keeping watch as promised. I should have felt safer. Instead, their presence was a constant reminder of unseen threats. On Friday afternoon, I was helping Maya with a school art project when my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Elena Jimenez? A man's voice asked when I answered. Not Dante's rich timbre, but something colder, heavily accented. Who is this? I demanded, moving away from Maya. A friend of Mr. Russo's, the voice replied, amusement evident. Or perhaps an admirer of yours. I saw you sing. Very beautiful. Dread pooled in my stomach. What do you want? To meet. To discuss a business opportunity. Mr. Russo is not the only man who can appreciate talent. I am not interested, I said firmly, glancing at Maya, who was happily gluing sequins to paper. Your daughter, Maya? Yes. She would be interested in the dollhouse I have bought for her. Children Love presents. My blood turned to ice. He knew Maya's name. Had bought her a gift. The threat could not have been clearer if he had spelled it out. Do not come near my daughter, I whispered. Then come near me instead, he replied smoothly. Tonight, 8 o'clock, the Harborview Hotel, room 412. Come alone, or I will visit little Maya myself. The line went dead. I stood frozen, phone clutched in my trembling hand. Maya looked up, her smile fading as she saw my expression. Mommy, what is wrong? Nothing, mija. I forced a smile. Just a work call. Your sequins look beautiful. My mind raced as I helped Maya finish her project. I could not go to this meeting. It was obviously a trap, but the threat to Maya was too specific to ignore. I glanced out the window at the black sedan. Dante's men were still there, but could I trust them? Could I trust him? The card he had given me burned in my purse. Anytime, day or night, he had said. With trembling fingers, I retrieved it, plain white, with only a phone number embossed in black. As soon as Maya was occupied with her favorite cartoon, I stepped into the bathroom and dialed. He answered on the first ring. Elena. Not a question. He had known it would be me. Someone called, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He mentioned Maya by name. Said he bought her a gift. My voice cracked. He wants me to meet him tonight at the Harborview Hotel. The silence that followed was so absolute I thought the call had dropped. Then, are you and Maya safe right now? Yes, we are home. Your men are still outside. Stay there. Lock the doors. Do not answer for anyone. His voice was cold, controlled, but I could hear the rage simmering beneath. I am sending someone to bring you both to my house. Pack only what you need for a few days. Dante. I cannot just. Elena. The way he said my name, part command, part plea, silenced my objection. They have threatened your child. This is not a negotiation. He was right, and we both knew it. Okay, I conceded. How soon? 30 minutes. I will meet you here. After we hung up, I moved through the apartment in a daze, packing essentials for Maya and myself. How had my life veered so dramatically off course in just 1 week? How had I gone from struggling single mother to a parent pawn in some dangerous game between powerful men? Maya, sensing my tension despite my efforts to hide it, grew clingy and anxious. Where are we going, Mommy? A little trip, I explained, keeping my voice light. To a friend's house, like an adventure. Is it the man in the black car? She asked, surprising me. I see him watching our windows. Children noticed everything. Yes, sort of. His name is Dante. He has a big house near the ocean. Her eyes widened. Like a castle? Almost. I smiled weakly. With a beautiful piano. 28 minutes later, a soft knock sounded at our door. I peered through the peephole to see one of Dante's men, the younger one who had driven me home from the mansion. Miss Jimenez, I am here to escort you and your daughter. He kept his voice low. Professional. The car is waiting downstairs. Mr. Russo sent me to carry your bags. The drive to Dante's mansion was tense and silent. Maya, initially excited by the adventure, soon fell asleep against my side, lulled by the smooth motion of the expensive car. I stroked her hair, my mind churning with fear and uncertainty. Dante himself was waiting when we arrived, standing in the open doorway of the mansion. The sight of him sent conflicting emotions through me, relief at his solid presence, apprehension about the danger surrounding him, and something else, something more complicated that I refused to examine. His eyes immediately found mine, then moved to Maya, sleeping in my arms as the driver carried her from the car. Something softened in his expression. Let me take her, he offered, approaching us. I hesitated, then nodded. He lifted Maya from my arms with surprising gentleness, cradling her small body against his chest as if she were made of glass. The contrast between his imposing frame and my daughter's tiny form made my heart clench. This way, he said softly, leading me into the house. I have prepared rooms for both of you. He carried Maya through the vast, silent house to a bedroom that looked like something from a fairy tale. A canopy bed with sheer white curtains, walls painted a soft blue, shelves filled with children's books and toys. This was my niece's room when she visited, Dante explained as he laid Maya on the bed. She is in college now, but I keep it ready. The tenderness with which he tucked the blanket around my sleeping daughter caught me off guard. This was not the cold, dangerous man from the Blue Note, nor even the passionate musician from our dinner. This was yet another facet of Dante Russo, one I was not prepared for. Your room connects through there, he said, indicating a door on the far wall. You should rest. We will talk in the morning. No, I said firmly. We will talk now. I need to know what is happening, who these people are, why they are threatening my daughter. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Very well. Follow me. After checking once more that Maya was sound asleep, I followed Dante to what appeared to be his study, a masculine space of dark wood and leather, walls lined with books. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, handed one to me, then sat heavily in a leather chair. The man who called you is Alexei Volkov, he said without preamble. He works for the Bratva, the Russian Mafia. We have had territorial disputes and I am. What? Collateral damage? I took a large swallow of the whiskey, welcoming the burn. Your leverage, he corrected grimly. They have been watching me. They saw us together and assumed you were important to me. The implication hung in the air between us. Am I? I asked boldly, meeting his gaze. Important to you? Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. More than is wise, he admitted. For either of us. The honesty of his answer disarmed me. I do not understand why. We barely know each other. Do we? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I have watched you for months, Elena. I know how you take your coffee at that shop near your office. Black, 2 sugars. I know you sing lullabies in Spanish when you think no one can hear. I know you wear that silver bracelet every day because Maya made it for Mother's Day. My hand went instinctively to the bracelet of mismatched beads on my wrist. That is not knowing me. That is surveillance. Perhaps, he conceded. But I also know the sound of your genuine laugh, rare as it is. I know the way your eyes change when you sing from your heart instead of just your voice. I know your courage, your fierce love for your daughter." He paused. "I feel as though I have known you in another life, Elena." The intensity of his gaze, the rawness in his voice made me look away. "This is insane." "Yes," he agreed simply, "but it does not make it less true." I drained my glass, needing the liquid courage. "So, what happens now with these Russians?" Dante's expression hardened. "I handle it permanently." The way he said permanently sent a chill through me. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you do not need to worry about it." He stood, moved to refill my glass. "You and Maya will stay here where it is safe until it is over." "And how long will that be?" "A few days. A week at most." He hesitated. "I have taken the liberty of calling your office. They believe you have had a family emergency, and will be out all next week. Marco at the Blue Note has also been informed." Anger flared at his presumption. "You had no right." "I had every right." He cut me off, voice suddenly hard. "The moment they threatened your child, this became my responsibility." "Why?" I challenged, rising to face him. "Because you decided to watch me? Because you played piano with me once? What gives you the right to take over my life?" He moved closer, the controlled facade slipping. "Because I cannot bear the thought of anything happening to you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Because from the moment I heard you sing, something inside me that I thought was dead came back to life." The raw confession hung between us. I was acutely aware of how close we stood, of the heat radiating from his body, of my own traitorous pulse quickening. "I should hate you for this," I whispered, "for dragging us into danger." "You should," he agreed, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered against my cheek. "But do you?" I could not answer, could not lie, could not admit the truth, that despite everything, despite the danger and disruption, I felt more alive in his presence than I had in years. A noise from the doorway broke the moment. One of Dante's men stood there, expression grim. "Sir, we have information about Volkov's location." Dante's hand fell away from my face, his expression immediately shifting back to cold authority. "I will be right there." He turned back to me. "Get some rest, Elena. My house is secure. You are safe here." "And what about you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Something like surprise flickered across his features, followed by a small, genuine smile. "Worried about me, Elena? Should I be?" His smile faded. "No. This is what I do." After he left, I returned to the room adjoining Maya's. Despite my exhaustion, sleep eluded me. I lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the huge house, to Maya's soft breathing through the connecting door, to the occasional murmur of voices or footsteps in distant corridors. Sometime after midnight, I heard the door to Maya's room open. Instantly alert, I slipped from bed and moved silently to the connecting door, ready to defend my child against any threat. But it was Dante who stood in the dim light, watching my sleeping daughter. His posture was rigid, hands clasped behind his back, face set in an expression of such fierce protectiveness that it took my breath away. He must have sensed my presence. Without turning, he spoke softly. "I had a sister once, younger, like Maya." The simple statement, delivered in that quiet voice, told me everything I needed to know. Had a sister, Pestinsa, the loss that haunted him. That perhaps explained his obsession with protecting us. "What happened to her?" I asked gently. "She became collateral damage," he said, echoing my earlier words. "In a war she had no part in. Just like Maya could be if I am not careful." He turned to me then, and in the dim light, I saw a vulnerability I had not thought him capable of. "I will not let that happen again, Elena. No matter what it costs me." In that moment, standing in the soft darkness of my daughter's borrowed bedroom, Dante Russo ceased to be a dangerous Mafia boss and became simply a man, one carrying wounds that mirrored my own. Loss had shaped us both, carved hollows that we had learned to live around but never truly filled. "What was her name?" I asked softly. "Sophia," he answered, his voice barely audible. "She was 16. I moved closer, drawn by the raw grief in his voice. "I am sorry." He shook his head slightly, as if to dispel the memory. His eyes returned to Maya, peaceful in her slumber. "She looks like you. Everyone says she looks like her father." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Carlos was a fool to leave you both." The mention of my ex-husband's name reminded me how thoroughly Dante had investigated my life. I should have felt violated, but somehow in the quiet intimacy of the moment, it felt like he had simply been trying to understand me. "It was for the best," I admitted. He was never cut out for fatherhood or faithfulness. Dante's eyes found mine in the dimness. "His loss," he said simply. We stood in silence, watching Maya sleep, the space between us charged with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Dante stepped back. You should rest, he said, his voice returning to its usual controlled cadence. Tomorrow will be complicated. Are you going after him? Volkov? His expression hardened. Yes. Will you kill him? I asked directly, needing to know exactly what kind of man I was dealing with. He studied me for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth I could handle, if necessary. I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak. Part of me was horrified by the casual way he contemplated violence, but another part, a primal, protective part, understood. If someone threatened Maya, was I not capable of the same? Good night, Elena, he said softly, already turning to leave. Danci. His name felt intimate on my lips. He paused, looking back at me. Be careful. Something like tenderness flickered in his eyes before he nodded once and disappeared into the hallway. I returned to my bed but remained awake for hours. My thoughts a turbulent mix of fear, confusion, and most disturbing of all, a growing attraction to a man who represented everything I had spent my life avoiding. Morning came with golden sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the delighted squeals of my daughter discovering the playroom adjacent to her bedroom. I found her surrounded by toys more elaborate than anything she had ever owned, being entertained by a kind-faced woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper. Mr. Russo said to tell you he had business in the city. Mrs. Chen informed me as she served us breakfast on the terrace overlooking the ocean. He hopes to return by evening. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Business in the city. With Volkov, undoubtedly. The day passed in a strange limbo. Maya was enchanted by the mansion, especially when she discovered the piano room. She begged me to sing while she pressed random keys, creating chaotic accompaniment that filled the huge space with sound and momentarily dispelled my worries. Security men patrolled the grounds discreetly. Mrs. Chen kept us comfortable, anticipating needs we did not know we had. By afternoon, Maya was napping, exhausted from exploration, and I found myself wandering the halls of Dante's home, trying to piece together the puzzle of who he really was. His study revealed little beyond impeccable taste in literature. The art on his walls was original and expensive, but selected with genuine appreciation rather than just for status. Nothing felt ostentatious. Instead, the house reflected quiet confidence and old-world elegance. In a small room off the main hallway, I discovered what must have been a shrine to Sophia. Photographs of a beautiful dark-haired girl at various ages, trophies for horseback riding, a framed acceptance letter to a prestigious arts academy dated 15 years earlier. The final photo showed her laughing beside a younger Dante, his face unguarded, alight with brotherly pride. The sound of approaching footsteps made me turn. One of Dante's men, the one who had driven us here, stood in the doorway. Miss Jimenez, he said, his expression grave. You have a call. It is urgent. My heart froze. Is it Dant? Has something happened? No, Mum. It is someone else. Mr. Russo instructed us to monitor all calls to the house. This one came through the secure line. He led me to the study and handed me a phone. With trembling fingers, I answered. Hello? Elena. The accented voice from yesterday. Volkov. Such a lovely home Mr. Russo has. Ice flooded my veins. What do you want? I told you. A meeting. Your friend Russo is being uncooperative. Perhaps you will be more reasonable. I am listening, I said, trying to keep my voice steady while gesturing frantically to Dante's man, who was already typing rapidly into his phone. Sample. You come to me alone and your daughter remains safe. 1 hour. The address will be sent to your phone. He paused. Do not attempt to contact Russo. If I see his men, if I even suspect a trap, well, children are so fragile, are they not? The line went dead. Seconds later, my personal phone buzzed with a text message containing an address in the warehouse district. He is bluffing, Dante's man said immediately. The house is secure. He cannot get to Maya. Are you certain? I demanded, panic rising in my throat. He found my personal number. He knew about Maya before. Can you guarantee he does not have someone inside already? The man's hesitation was all the answer I needed. Call Dante, I insisted. I am trying. He has gone dark. Operational security. We have protocols for this. He was already speaking rapid Italian into another phone. We will get a team to the address. Secure the perimeter in an hour. I shook my head. He will see them coming. Maya will be at risk. Miss Jimenez, you cannot seriously be considering going there. It is a trap. Of course it is a trap. I agreed, a strange calm settling over me. But I need to buy time until you can reach Dante. Mr. Russo was explicit. You and your daughter do not leave this house under any circumstances. I looked him directly in the eye. Then he should have stayed here to enforce that order. Before he could react, I was moving, grabbing my purse, heading for the garage I had noticed during our tour. Behind me, I could hear the security team mobilizing, but I had the advantage of surprise. The garage was a car collector's dream. A dozen vehicles ranging from practical SUVs to exotic sports cars. Keys hung on a neat board by the door. I grabbed the first set I saw, triggering the lights on a sleek black Audi. I was pulling out of the garage when 2 security men appeared, shouting for me to stop. In the rearview mirror, I could see more men running from the house. I accelerated down the long driveway, heart pounding, hands shaking on the wheel. What was I doing? The question echoed in my mind as I sped toward the city, walking into a trap set by the Russian Mafia, risking my life when my daughter needed me. But the alternative, waiting helplessly, hoping Dante's security was as good as he claimed, gambling with Maya's safety, was unthinkable. At least this way, I controlled some part of the equation. I could buy time, keep Volkov focused on me rather than Maya until Dante could be reached. It was not much of a plan, but it was all I had. The warehouse district was deserted when I arrived, early evening shadows stretching across crumbling concrete. The address led to an abandoned fish processing plant, its windows broken, its metal doors rusted shut, except for one that stood slightly ajar. I parked the Audi and sat for a moment, gathering my courage. Then, leaving my phone and purse behind, if they were tracking me, they already knew I was here. I approached the door. The interior was cavernous, the air heavy with the lingering smell of fish and salt. My footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as I ventured deeper. "Hello?" I called, my voice small in the vast space. "Elena Jimenez." The voice came from above. I looked up to see Alexei Volkov leaning against a railing on a metal catwalk. He was younger than I had expected, perhaps my age, with pale blue eyes and a smile that never reached them. "Brave of you to come alone. You threatened my daughter," I replied simply. He descended a rusted staircase, 2 men with guns flanking him. A necessary motivation. Business, not personal. "What do you want from me?" He reached the bottom of the stairs and approached, studying me with clinical interest. Information primarily. Russo's operations, shipment schedules, security protocols. He circled me slowly, and perhaps a message. Something to remind him of his vulnerabilities. Fear clawed at my throat, but I forced myself to remain still, to meet his gaze evenly. "I cannot tell you what I do not know." He laughed softly. "Everyone says this. Eventually, they remember things they did not know they knew." He nodded to one of his men who produced a phone and began recording. First, a message for Dante. Yes? Something to motivate his cooperation. I had no illusions about what kind of message he intended. Images from crime shows and movies flashed through my mind. Beatings, torture, mutilation. I swallowed hard, desperately trying to think of a way to stall. "He will not negotiate," I said. "Not even for me." Volkov raised an eyebrow. "No? He seems quite attached. Bringing you to his home, assigning security. These are not the actions of an indifferent man. You misunderstand our relationship," I insisted. "I am just a singer he hired for an event. A singer he protects like a precious jewel." Volkov shook his head. "I think not. Dante Russo does not reveal his weaknesses so easily. Yet for you..." He stepped closer, his cologne sickly sweet in the stale air. "For you, he has been careless." A sound from somewhere in the building made all 3 men turn sharply. Volkov barked an order in Russian, and one of his men moved to investigate. "Your security detail, perhaps?" Volkov asked me, his voice hardening. "I warned you to come alone." "I did," I insisted. "I ditched them at Dante's house." He studied my face, then seemed to believe me. "Then we should move quickly before they find us." He reached for my arm, but before he could touch me, a single gunshot echoed through the building. Volkov's bodyguard crumpled to the floor, blood blooming across his chest. Everything happened at once. The second guard shoved Volkov behind a concrete pillar while raising his weapon. More shots rang out from somewhere in the shadows. I dropped to the ground, crawling desperately toward a stack of rusted barrels for cover. Through the chaos, I heard Dante's voice, cold, deadly calm. "Volkov, the woman walks out of here unharmed, or you do not walk out at all." Relief and terror warred within me. Dante was here, but now we were caught in the middle of a gunfight between 2 mafia factions. "Russo," Volkov shouted back, always so dramatic. "We can discuss this. Like businessmen. There is nothing to discuss." Dante's voice was closer now. "You threatened what is mine. That demands a response." More gunfire erupted. I curled into a tight ball behind the barrels, hands over my ears, heart threatening to burst from my chest. The firefight seemed to last forever, but probably spanned only minutes. Then, sudden silence. "Elena?" Dante's voice, urgent with worry. "Elena, where are you?" "Here," I called weakly, emerging from behind the barrels. He appeared from the shadows, gun still in hand, eyes wild with fear that transformed to relief when he saw me. In 3 long strides, he reached me, his free hand cupping my face. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, eyes scanning me for injuries. I shook my head, unable to speak, trembling with delayed shock. His expression darkened with fury. "What were you thinking? Coming here alone? He could have killed you. He threatened Maya," I whispered. "Said he had someone watching the house. I could not risk it." Understanding softened his anger. He pulled me against him, his heart hammering beneath my cheek. "Maya is safe. I would never have left if she was not. We intercepted Volkov's call to you. It was all a bluff to draw you out." Tears of relief and exhaustion filled my eyes. "I am sorry. I panicked." He tilted my face up to his. "You were protecting your child. Never apologize for that." A groan from across the room interrupted us. Volkov was alive, slumped against a pillar, blood seeping from a wound in his shoulder. Dante's expression hardened as he turned toward the Russian. "Stay here," he instructed me, moving toward his enemy. I watched as Dante crouched beside Volkov, speaking in low tones I could not hear. Whatever he said made the Russian's already pale face go white with fear. After a moment, Volkov nodded weakly. Dante straightened and returned to me, sliding his gun into a shoulder holster. "It is over," he said simply. "His men will take him back to his own territory. He will not trouble us again." "You are letting him live?" I asked, surprised. "Dead men cannot spread warnings," Dante replied coldly. "His failure here will damage his standing more effectively than his death would." He guided me out of the warehouse, his arm protectively around my shoulders. Outside, the dusk had deepened into night. Several black SUVs idled nearby, men in dark suits standing at attention. One approached us, handing Dante a phone. "Sir, we have secured the perimeter. Police have been diverted." Dante nodded. "Take care of the scene. Standard protocol." He turned to me. "Let us get you home." Home. The word hung between us, suddenly complicated. Did he mean my apartment? His mansion? Neither felt quite right anymore. The drive back to the cliffside house passed in exhausted silence. I leaned against the cool window, watching the city lights blur past, trying to process everything that had happened. Beside me, Dante was equally quiet, though I could feel the tension radiating from him. When we arrived, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "What happens now?" He looked at me, really looked at me, his dark eyes unguarded for once. "That depends on you, Elena." Mrs. Chen met us at the door, assuring me that Maya had eaten dinner and was playing happily in her room. I nodded gratefully and followed Dante to his study, where he poured us both generous glasses of whiskey. "Volkov will not come after us again," he said, handing me a glass. "But there could be others. My world is complicated." I took a long sip, welcoming the burn. "And dangerous." "Yes." He did not try to deny it. "Which is why you need to decide what happens next. You and Maya can return to your apartment tomorrow. I will ensure you have security. Discreet. You will not even notice them. You can resume your normal life. Or, I prompted, sensing there was an alternative. He hesitated, then set his glass down and moved closer to me. "Or you could stay here, with me." The directness of the offer took my breath away. "Dante, I know it is sudden," he continued. "I know it does not make sense. But from the moment I heard you sing, Elena, I have been unable to think of anything else. When I am with you, I feel..." He searched for the right word. "Whole. You do not even know me," I whispered. "I know enough," he countered, taking my hand in his. "I know you are fierce and loyal and brave beyond reason. I know you love your daughter with everything you have. I know your voice reaches places inside me I thought were dead." His words resonated in places I had kept locked away since Carlos left. Places that hungered for connection, for passion, for something more than mere survival. "And what about your world?" I asked. "The danger, the violence. I cannot expose Maya to that. I would protect you both with my life," he vowed. "And..." He hesitated again. I could step back. Legitimate businesses only. No more complicated situations. The offer stunned me. "You would do that? Change your entire life?" "For the right reasons," he said simply. "For the right people." I looked up into his eyes, searching for deception, for manipulation, for the calculated charm of a man used to getting what he wanted. Instead, I found raw honesty, vulnerability, and something that looked remarkably like love. "I need time," I said finally. "This is overwhelming." He nodded, stepping back slightly. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He hesitated, then added softly, "Just do not disappear on me, Elena. Whatever you decide, let me hear it from you directly." I nodded, suddenly exhausted beyond words. I should check on Maya. He walked me to her room, where we found her building an elaborate castle from blocks, her face lighting up when she saw us. "Mommy, Mr. Dante, look what I made." I watched as Dante crouched beside her, examining her creation with genuine interest, asking questions that made her giggle with delight. The sight of them together, my sunshine child and this dangerous, complex man, created a confusing tangle of emotions in my chest. Later, after Maya was asleep, I stood on the balcony outside my room, watching moonlight dance across the waves below. The events of the past week played through my mind like scenes from someone else's life. How had I gone from struggling single mother to the object of a mafia boss's affection? How had I ended up here, contemplating a future I could never have imagined? A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Dante stood in the doorway, his usual imposing presence softened by the lateness of the hour. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the balcony. I nodded, and he joined me at the railing, his shoulder almost touching mine as we gazed out at the silver-streaked ocean. "When I was a boy," he said after a while, "my father told me that power was everything, that fear was respect and respect was control." He turned to face me. It took me 38 years to realize he was wrong. I studied his profile, strong and proud in the moonlight. "What changed your mind?" "You did," he said simply. "I watched you with nothing, with no power or money or connections, fight every day for your daughter, for your dignity, for your dreams. And I realized that the strongest person I had ever met was a woman singing in a second-rate club for tips." The raw honesty in his voice moved me more than any declaration of love could have. I reached for his hand, twining my fingers with his. "I am scared," I admitted. "Not of you, but of this. Of wanting something I should not. Of risking Maya's stability on a feeling." "What feeling?" he asked softly. I met his gaze directly. "That when I am with you, I am more myself than I have ever been. That despite everything, all the danger and craziness and impossibility, something about this feels right." He stepped closer, one hand rising to cut my cheek. "Elena," he whispered, my name a prayer on his lips. When he kissed me, it felt like coming home, a home I had not known I was searching for. His lips were gentle at first, questioning, then more insistent as I responded. His arms encircled me, pulling me against the solid warmth of his chest. And for the first time in years, I felt completely safe. That night, as we lay tangled in each other's arms, the full moon casting silver light across the bed, I made my decision. Not from fear or desperation or practical necessity, but from the certainty that sometimes life offers unexpected paths to happiness. 3 months later, Maya and I moved permanently into the cliffside house. Dante kept his promise, divesting from his more complicated businesses, focusing on legitimate enterprises. There were adjustments, compromises, difficult conversations about his past and our future, but there was also joy, passion, and a sense of family that neither of us had experienced in too long. Sometimes on clear evenings, the three of us sit at the piano, Dante playing, me singing, Maya watching with wide-eyed wonder. In those moments, I think about the strange, winding path that led us here. How a single mother singing in a nightclub caught the eye of a mafia boss, and how that chance encounter changed everything. Life is not a fairy tale. Dante still carries the shadows of his past. I still wake sometimes from nightmares of warehouses and gunfire. But each morning, I open my eyes to find him beside me, solid and real, his love a constant I never expected but now cannot imagine living without. And when I sing now, not at the Blue Note, but at exclusive venues where Dante watches proudly from the audience, my voice carries new depths of emotion, of experience, of hard-won happiness. Because now I know that sometimes the most dangerous choice can lead to the most beautiful outcome, and that, in the end, is a risk worth taking.